After late disappointment last time out, ITFC are on their travels this Saturday looking to kickstart the second half of their season by rewriting history. This is the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast discussing Ipswich Town up or down since 2015. I'm Rich Woodard and this is the Prematch show brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Greyhound Pub in Ipswich. We're available every week on YouTube video and podcast audio. And back once again, it's Seb Brown. How you doing, mate? You good?
Hello, mate. I'm good. How are you? Very fetching jumper you're wearing. Is that a turtleneck?
It is a bit of a turner. It's a Christmas gift. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Looking very dapper.
Thanks very much. I thought I'd go and deliver some milk tray later on.
Exactly the joke I was about to make.
That's one for the kids. Hello, kids. Milk tray, type of chocolate confectionery in a box.
He was like James Bond of the confectionery world back in the 90s.
A little bit suspect, right? He used to break into women's houses and deliver chocolates to them in the dark.
It's got a bit sinister now, isn't it?
It is. That's what it was, though. That's the 80s for you, though. That kind of stuff is acceptable, isn't it? You had your trip to Portman Road, safe travels and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah. Good, thank you. Yeah, got back fine. Enjoyed the Plymouth game as much as any of us, I think, could have enjoyed it. And then, got back fine to a load of snow. I've had snow all week up here. It's been treacherous getting to work, but yeah, it's starting to wash away now. So
there you go, as things tend to do. Well, we'll be talking about Oxford and, this eye-watering, that's not the right word, is it? Daunting away record that we have there in the league. More on that later, but let's bring everything up to date, shall we? As we record this, this isn't over the line. If you see Seb and I throughout the podcast looking at our phones, it's because we're checking ITFC Twitter to see if this gets announced. But everyone seems pretty confident. Seb, talk to me about Harry Clark signing.
Yeah, all the reputable sources have started reporting it this afternoon, and it's on TWTD. Stu and Andy have reported it on the East Anglian, so it must be pretty close to being done. It's Harry Clark coming back to the club. He was lured away by Arsenal when he was 14. Lured away at the age of 14. He looks like he's on his way back to us. He spent the first half of this season on loan at Stoke, a right-sided kind of centre half slash right back. He's been playing in the Stoke side, and an academy boy who's on his way back. It seems like the rumours started early in the week, I think, on the message boards and on Twitter and stuff, but it looks like, hopefully, depending on when you listen to this, it should be confirmed in the not too distant future. And I guess if he's done by midday tomorrow, he'd be eligible for the squad on Saturday, wouldn't he? If they can get it done in time, it might be a bench option, but maybe comes a little bit too soon for him. And another one of these kind of right age, championship experience, good pedigree. Arsenal, he signed a new deal at Arsenal in 2019, so they clearly kind of thought of him 3 years or so after they kind of pinched him or lured him away from us. So another one of these that hopefully is on the journey, and another exciting signing, I think. What are your thoughts on it?
Another seven-figure sum is being talked about as well. Quite statement when you consider the fee for Leif Davis earlier in the season and then Nathan Broadhead a week or so ago. So, not mucking around, are we?
Well, Ashton came out, didn't he, and said that, did he say no regrets? I don't want to leave any stones unturned with the January window. So I guess, if only we'd done this in 2015, how different the timelines could have been, but who would the equivalents
have been at that point? Then let's try and think. £1 million striker, £1 million right back. I'm trying to think back to 2014.
No idea.
You kind of think like players like Chris Martin. I know he's an ex-budget.
Yeah, maybe.
That kind of that ilk, But anyway, that's one for another podcast, isn't it? But I kind of feel like we're in no excuses territory. Puts the pressure on quite a lot, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Where do you see him fitting in? Obviously, he's a right-sided centre half slash right back. What do you see his role in the team?
Well, he's not going to move Wolfenden out of the team, is he? So either he's going to have to play out of position and left centre back position instead of Burgess, or it looks like he's here to give competition to Janoi Danassian. And I'd argue the seven-figure transfer fee might mean that he's actually first choice, which is really harsh on JD because he's had a really good season, but you kind of feel like maybe that partnership with Burns hasn't been the same since maybe October time, and maybe that's a factor in this one. I'd expect him to go right back. Seb, what say you?
I agree. I think that seems logical. Danassian always seems to have these challenges, doesn't he? Every kind of 18 months or 12 months or so in his Ipswich Town career, he has a new challenge he has to overcome. Like you say, I agree. I think it's a little bit harsh, and it may be, but we've got to look towards the future. I mean, Danassian must be 28, 29, 30 years old maybe. And this, obviously Harry Clark is only 21. He's a ball playing player as well. So with the greatest respect to Donatian, because I really like him, this is probably a technically better player that's coming in that can, you know, offer bringing the ball out. And if he can dovetail and link up with Burns as well as Donatian has, then that's absolutely superb, you know.
Yeah, Donatian 10-29 just before Christmas.
Okay, yeah. So it's one with an eye to the future, and maybe, you know, football is a harsh business. If we do get promoted, has Donatian maybe reached his ceiling in League One? He's played in the Championship before for us on a handful of occasions. He didn't get any kind of consistent runs, but maybe this is one to look for next season if hopefully we all get to where we hope we're going to go.
Yeah, and worth noting that McKenna likes the solid option, the two players for each position kind of situation, and I guess there's. KVY hasn't really given us a huge amount of reason to doubt him. In fact, he came off the bench, didn't he, last week against Plymouth? But I guess you wonder whether he's at the standard. And defensively, I think he's probably not got the defensive sensibilities that Clark has. So is it? I mean, players are going to have to leave, aren't they, now to be able to make the registrations?
No, he's underage.
He's 21. So
yeah, he's underage. He could just slot in with no one else having to leave. I guess we've deregistered Ball, so we had three. If you deregistered Ball, we had 3 slots available. Luongo, Broadhead, and Hurst take those slots, but Clark can just be a free hit for the rest of the season.
Right, but
from a squad point of view,
it's congested now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. From a squad point of view, I guess KVY is useful because his versatility allows him to cover both fullback positions and maybe in an emergency as a centre half in a back three. But I guess, you know, that means you're leaving out Greg Lee each week, as we saw last weekend against Plymouth. So maybe you have to ease 1 or 2 out the door just to kind of keep the dressing room kind of happy. You know?
But and
for these guys wanting to go and play football as well, you know, I've got no doubts that, you know, KVY would get a decent kind of League One side and go and play some football, because unfortunately for him, I think he'd probably agree the injuries have meant he's not the player we thought, you know, we were going to get in the summer of 2019 when he joined us.
Yeah, and we have said as well that Jackson's probably the cover for Wes Burns' right wing as well, isn't he? So, you know, KVY could do that and has done that job, but again, he's not going to get you the end product perhaps that Wes Burns or even a Caden Jackson will get. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Obviously, we have to caveat it that we are speculating, or sorry, we are interpreting the new situation as it relates to us at sort of 8 o'clock on Thursday. So things might change, but it's looking, all signs points towards we need to get our lucky 8 ball. Try again later, which is essentially what we're doing right now with Twitter. But yeah, everything looks like it's going to happen. So yeah, interesting times there. In terms of players that are on their way out, I mean, Elkan Baggett's been at Gillingham for half the season, has been recalled to Cheltenham. Matt Penny's returned from Motherwell, where he's had a pretty solid loan spell. Do you want to give us your take on those two situations, Seb?
Yeah, so Elkan Baggett's been at Gillingham, hasn't he? He was getting game time. I think, was it 22 appearances, I think, so far for the start of the year, 3 goals as well. So he was doing okay, but they are obviously complete relegation fodder. They're a bit of a basket case at the moment. I know they've brought in, you know, a new structure, a new management, but they are kind of, you know, not where you're probably going to want a young kind of hopeful ball playing left-sided centre back to get, you know, decent kind of experience. So he's gone to Cheltenham in our league, which is, you know, a step up for him. 6 months at League Two and they straight into League One. So another good development loan for him, hopefully. And it'd be nice if you could start with a bit of a boost this weekend because they're playing one of our rivals. So that would be a nice little start, and hopefully he'll get some decent game time there. And yeah, another good solid development loan out for him. And Matt Penny coming back, that I thought he would just stay. I thought they just announced they've renegotiated the loan to the end of the season because he was doing really well. He was described as outstanding, I think, by Hamill, the Motherwell manager. He won their Player of the Year in October and November. So
the Player of the Year in October.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Player of the Month in October and November.
He's that good.
He's that good.
Just cancel
the vote. So yeah, I thought they just announced that it was being extended to the end of the season, or it would be a mutual consent FC, and he would sign there. But for whatever reason, he's come back here. He can't be registered without deregistering a player. So bit of a strange one. Did he go on Instagram or Twitter? I saw something on the socials which appeared to be a bit of a, you know, definitive thanks very much, farewell. So we'll have to see where that one goes. Maybe they're hopeful they'll get a low fee from, you know, a League One, League Two side and just get a bit of a return on him. He's out of contract in the summer and obviously he won't be retained. So we'll see what happens to that one, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe his agent thinks he can do better than Motherwell, perhaps. But it would seem a strange one. Or maybe there is some hardball negotiating going on behind the scenes as well. And we're kind of testing Motherwell's reserve by recalling him back and, you know, saying, we're happy to let him sit in the reserves for 6 months. You know, what are you going to do about it kind of thing. So we'll wait and see on that one. And as for Baggett, from what I hear from Gillingham fans, he stood out. And that's what you want for a young player going online. That's what we've not had maybe in previous regimes where loan players go out to lower divisions and don't really stand out. From all accounts, Baggett, the reports have been really positive there. So it'd be great to see him contribute at League One level. And yeah, if he can do anything to help us, then that would be fantastic, won't it? But yeah, Cheltenham just outside the relegation danger for now. Probably need to get a few more points, but we know for a fact they're quite obstinate and difficult to beat, don't we? So we shall see how he gets on there. Under 18s were in FA Youth Cup action through to the 5th round. I was there along with
you were
Joe
representing, weren't you, with the
and
Blue
Dave.
Monday group?
Yeah. Entertaining game. Very similar situation. Well, very similar to Plymouth. Quite end to end. Quite two well matched teams, despite the fact that Forest are a Category 1 side. I think they're 4th in their Premier League Northern Division, whatever it's called, and they were the losing cup finalists last season. So beating them is no mean feat. So yeah, home advantage perhaps told there. I don't know. In terms of players to look out for, the twins, Harry and Finley Barber, were standouts for me. Goal scorer Rio Morgan looked like he had a bit of naughtiness about him, which I quite liked. Scored an edge. Scored our goal and the winning penalty as well. And yeah, looking forward to Liverpool rekindling that rivalry we've got with Liverpool now in the FA Youth Cup, and that will be played, I think, before the 11th of February. I think it has to be played.
Okay. Was that last year we lost to them? Was it the year before?
I think it was the year before.
Because fans couldn't go, is that right? Am I right?
It was on BT Sport, wasn't it?
Was it COVID and only I think the fans couldn't go and stuff? Yeah, that
even the families I don't think were allowed to go to.
That rings a bell. Adam Ate was in charge at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, so it'll be good to get plenty in Portman Road for that one, and I'm sure more details on dates and all that kind of stuff during due course. But yeah, good positive moves again from our youth teams. That's what you want to see. In final bits and pieces of news, ITFC women play on Sunday. They've got a rearranged game. They did have a weekend off, but I think looking to bounce back after disappointment away at Pompey. London Bees, the opposition, a little bit more friendly, just above the relegation zone and haven't amassed too many points. So Joe Sheehan's side will be hoping to bounce back there with a victory. We wish them all the very best for that one. And then next week, back in FA Cup action. We'll have more about that next week, and hopefully some guests or two from ITFC Women to talk all about it. Should we talk about Oxford then, Seb?
Yes, it feels like we did this like 2 weeks ago. It's the one. There's always there's every year there's a fixture, isn't there, where you play them twice in the space of a month. I remember it was Sunderland last year. I went to the Stadium of Light. Must have been mid-November, maybe the end of November. And then it was the game when McKenna was announced as like a 3 or 4 week turnaround. So, yeah, it's a repeat of the Boxing Day fixtures for the league programme, isn't it? Yeah, and in our script, we don't have this until maybe 3 or 4 things in. I mentioned this in the start. Should we talk about this record we've got at Oxford? Do you want to talk us through the stats? Because neither of us have... They are definitely a home and away team, aren't they, Oxford? And seemingly... our history away at Oxford isn't particularly favourable, is it? It's not, no, is it? In the league away at the Cassan, we haven't won a game. We've drawn 7 and we've lost 4. And since coming back down to League One, we've had these kind of binary results up until the Boxing Day 3-0 victory. We discussed it on the pre-match show for that one, didn't we? But the first year down, it was a 0-0. I think that was in torrential rain, if I remember rightly, proper monsoon-style conditions. The year after, the COVID season, was another 0-0 draw, and then last season we all remember wasn't it? Last season we remember the 1-1. You know, Selena put us 1-0 up. We're going to close on top 6. The fans are going crazy, and they win a corner in the 95th minute. We all know what happened after that. So Luke McNally rising high to head home. So yeah, it's traditionally not a game that we kind of excel in. We haven't won there, and it's not a game of high scoring either. That said, obviously we did battle them 3-0 on Boxing Day, but we'll talk about that game in a minute, because I seem to remember them having a few chances in the first 15-20 minutes or so. So it is a side that will cause us problems, and our record there isn't amazing. For those of the right vintage, we have one in the League Cup and the Simod Cup, which I don't know what that is, but I'm sure someone will tell us all about that one. So it's not like we've never won away at Oxford, but in the league, the record 7 draws, 4 losses is not particularly good. And we got a similar thing with Cambridge in a couple of weeks' time as well. Is it? Brilliant. We've never won in the league at Cambridge either, so that's to be ticked off as well. Tick these both off and we're laughing. Yeah, just all these stats need to be ignored. They're irrelevant. What happens at 3 o'clock on Saturday is the most important thing. And ironically, overall,
we have the better of them in the head-to-head record, which means our home games against them must be massively outperforming, given all that away shambles. But talk to us about where Oxford are in the league, and let's focus on the home form this time around. Give me some details of how they get on at the Kassam.
Yeah, so they're currently sat 13th in the league with 32 points, played 25 games, won 8, drawn 8, lost 9. So, you know, a pretty kind of inconsistent side without any kind of massive numbers in any of the columns. Scored 31 goals and conceded 28. The last 6 games is 14th in the form table, 2 wins, 2 defeats and 2 draws. So again, that kind of ties in with the overall league results so far. They're a side that kind of struggled to get going and kind of build some momentum. Their home form isn't amazing. I was quite surprised. Their away form is much stronger than their home form. They're 19th in the home form table. So if the league was based just on home results, they are 19th with 15 points from 12 games, or 1.25 points per game, which isn't going to get you anywhere quickly in this league, is it? They're 15th for home goals scored, only scored 16 goals at home, conceded 13, and they've lost their last 2 in both competition, in all competitions at the Kassam. They lost 1-0 to Exeter in the league, and there was a 3-0 defeat against Arsenal. But that said, that Arsenal game, I didn't watch it, but I seem to remember it took them quite a while to break them down.
They got to half time, 0-0.
Second half, yeah, 0-0 at half time. Second half, they broke them down. So they are a kind of, a stubborn side that I don't think will give too much away.
And worth mentioning as well, we'll talk about Carl Robinson very briefly. You can obviously refer back to our previous podcast about Oxford for more detail on that one. But generally, his reputation is that of streakiness. And it's worth saying that right now it's kind of a toss a coin whether it's a draw, a defeat, or a win, rather than going on a long unbeaten or long losing runs, which they had done, and they had a poor start to the season. So they've not really established any kind of form of consistency, which is generally the hallmark of Carl Robinson's management there. But Seb, a win last time out away at Fleetwood, not an easy place to go, but maybe not all that it was cracked up to be, perhaps.
Yeah, 2-1 win on paper, but even the manager came out afterwards and kind of admitted they didn't deserve anything from the game. It was a 90th minute winner from the fullback, Kieran Brown. He kind of prods home from a corner. Fleetwood were 1-0 up, and to be fair, in the first half, it looks like they absolutely battered them. Oxford were reliant on someone Eastwood, the keeper, who seemed to just make save after save, and then a guy from Fleetwood puts a ball over the bar from a yard out. So I guess when those kind of things start to happen, you start to think, this isn't going to be our day. But in the second half, they made a tactical change. Billy Bowden comes on for Marcus McGuane in midfield, and they kind of go more attacking. Carl Joseph, who we'll discuss in a minute, who was absent for the Boxing Day game, scores a lovely goal. He kind of picks the ball up, cuts inside, beats a couple of men and rolls the ball home, and then they win it in the 90th minute. But the stats were all in favour of Fleetwood. Oxford had more possession, but apart from that, they had 13 shots to Fleetwood's 18. They had 2 shots on targets to Fleetwood's 5, only 1 big chance to Fleetwood's 3. So it was very much a kind of smash and grab, and Carl Robinson came out afterwards and said we were the worst team and we were completely indebted to our keeper on the day for getting us those 3 points. But it's not an easy place to go, and a win is a win, so they'll be heading into this one on a bit of confidence, I guess.
Yeah, well, worth noting, last time out, we'll talk very briefly now about our game on Boxing Day. It was an 8-game unbeaten run for them, which included, actually previous to the defeat to us, an away draw at Sheffield Wednesday. So they were on a good run, and then that defeat to us has kind of shaken things up a little bit. But it was a very dominant performance. My recollection, Seb, was we were under the cosh actually for the first 15 minutes. And then McKenna, I think, shifted things around a little bit, a bit of a tactical change, and Davis wasn't pushed so high. And then for some reason, simultaneously, they just sort of ran out of puff. They were pressing quite high. And we'll talk about Brannigan and Bowden, because I think they lead that high press. But they just kind of packed up a little bit partway through. And then we got the goals kind of at the right time. And in the end, we're pretty comfortable and probably could have won by a bit more than that. But any thoughts or points that you want to pick out on that game? In terms of dominance, I can see if I can get the stats here very briefly.
Yeah, if you look at the stats, like the 3-0, I think, like you said, we could have won by more. But I remember there being in the first 15, 20 minutes a couple of times, I think they got in behind, and we had to rely on Walton to make a couple of good saves. Ladapo does well. He scores, what you'd like a number 9 goal to be. I can't remember, someone has the shot, and the keeper, it wasn't Eastwood in goal that day. It was a standing keeper, the reserve keeper, wasn't it?
McGinty.
McGinty spills it, and Ladapo taps home, and then that lovely goal at the near post from the corner. Davis floats the corner in, and Burns hits it on the volley. That was a lovely goal, and it was 2-0 before half time. And the second half was, like you say, they ran out of puff, and we kind of eased off a little bit. And then Aluko finds Chaplin in because the space doesn't need, rifles one home to cap a good day. But I do remember them causing us some problems in the first 15, 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, they did the shithousery thing of flipping us round from kickoff as well.
You hate that, don't you? That's your
I hate when they do that.
bugbear.
But in terms of, I mean, shots on goal, 18-9. You know, I think the stats generally marry up that the result wasn't a fluke. But you're right that the idea that it was all one-way traffic, that they had some. I think was it Bowden hit side netting, I think, or the kind of the stanchion, the post behind the goal.
They had some chances,
and that was probably the wake-up call that we needed to get moving. So, yeah, tough opposition and not to be underestimated. What's changed since the Boxing Day game, Seb, in terms of personnel? The window's been open, but not a huge amount of business.
No, they seem to be struggling to do business. Robinson's come out this week to the local press and done an interview saying they're facing difficulties to get people in. They identified they wanted a striker, and Robinson did a quote, I think it was back in December time, saying ideally he'd like them in before the Fleetwood game, and nothing has materialised. I guess Brandon Fleming is a name that people might have heard of. He's kind of a left wing back from Hull in the Championship. He's arrived on loan for the second half of the season, which has enabled them to move Steve Seddon, who is their sort of reserve left back at the moment, out to Cambridge for the second half of the season. There are some alleged irregularities over a yellow card received by Kieran Brown in the Arsenal FA Cup game. So I guess maybe there's a train of thought if there's a ban coming his way, then they've moved quickly to kind of secure that position with Fleming coming in. And apart from that, it's ones for the future. They've made a couple of very young defensive additions, I presume, for the reserve squad, for the the development squad. Stephen Negru has joined from Shelburne in Ireland. He's only 20 years old. And Teddy Mafunu's joined from Warrington Town. He's only 18. So, one's with an eye on the future, but as will come on when we discuss their stats, they're a side that need improvements in the front through, primarily in that kind of central striking position, because that's where they're struggling. But for whatever reason, they just can't get deals done at the moment.
And a departure on the day we record, albeit probably a player that might not have featured too much on Saturday, but an important player and probably doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, John Messinio has moved on to Pompey. I think that broke kind of mid-afternoon, didn't it? You fired me across the text saying keep an eye on this one. Out of the blue, I think they were linked with Robbie Keane and stuff at some point, but John Messinio has gone there. He's 36. I think he was the club captain, barely featured this year. I think he'd made two or three appearances so far, but he'd been doing a bit of coaching with them. He was coaching and responsible for their defensive and offensive set pieces, which we will discuss in a minute because they are a threat from those, and he'd been looking after them. So decent pedigree. He got his UEFA Pro license last summer, so he's qualified and ready to go, and he's moving on to Portsmouth for his first stab at management. So wish him all the best. He won't feature on the weekend.
Let's talk about let's go into the formation and the style of play. We've talked about Cole Robinson before. Again,
you're not a fan on Cole Robinson, are you? Have I made that up? Or
no, you're right.
Is it because of the S-housery, or is it?
No, not really. I mean, that's part of it, and there was a bit of that on Boxing Day as well, albeit it didn't make any difference because we were winning at that point. So, fill your boots, guys. It's your own time you're wasting, kind of thing. Whenever he was linked with us, I was a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. Maybe it's because he's from the same.
I don't remember that. Was he linked with us? Was he?
Yeah, quite a few times. Maybe
when
wishful thinking. I think around that time. Yeah, maybe before and after.
Must have missed that. Okay.
But I think maybe it's because he's from the same part of the world as Paul Jewell. I just think of him as like Paul Jewell. Right. And Paul Jewell, I've just got an automatic aversion to his time, and ironically, there's a stat that comes up later on that reminded me of Paul Jewell. So I will pick that up later on if people will stick around with the podcast. But yeah, I'm just not convinced. And I remember working with an Oxford fan for a while, and he was never convinced either. And then they went on this amazing run, and he had to hold his tongue. But he's done well there. I'm not going to pretend that they are outperforming, or at least in previous seasons have probably outperformed the resources that they've got access to. But I'm just not convinced, Seb. But it's fair enough. Maybe it's I guess that explains preference.
Why he's never managed higher up the food chain. I know he had the spell where he got MK into the Championship, but the majority of his work's kind of been sort of League One level, hasn't it? So I guess other people agree with you, and that might be why he's never got a chance further up. I don't remember him being linked with us at all. I must have completely missed that. Or like you, I've got horror thoughts of Scousers like Paul Jewell as well. So maybe like you, I've blanked it out of my mind.
I think, maybe we all put that era in the back of our minds, maybe. But and partly it's personal preference, right? We don't have to like everyone who's involved in football, and it's not like he needs me to like him either. So no, Rich doesn't like me. But I wouldn't be convinced if I was a League One team challenging or a lower end Championship club. I'm not sure I'd be convinced. But doing really well at Oxford has to be said. So let's move on and let's talk about the way that he sets the team up, Seb, and maybe some of the key names of which quite a few will be familiar.
Yeah, so a 4-3-3 is their kind of most used formation so far this season. They've used it 14 times. They've used it in the last 3 league games as well. They kind of changed that a little bit when they came to Portman Road, but it's reverted back to the normal kind of 4-3-3. I guess the key players, we spoke about Cameron Brannigan on the December preview show before Boxing Day. He's kind of their main star man, isn't he? Turned down and moved to Blackpool in the summer. Blackpool are now managed by Mick McCarthy as well. That was confirmed tonight, wasn't it?
You can still find him, yeah.
He's back in the game with Terry.
The dinosaur.
Terry is his assistant. Oh, no, leave him alone. I think he'll do all right there. I think he'll keep them up.
Do you?
Yeah, don't you?
I mean, that's why you recruit Mick McCarthy. Yeah. He's got that experience. I guess I guess Blackpool are purists, I think, so they'll probably be fine with it. I guess if you're Blackpool as well, you'd expect to go down. So if he keeps them up, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just wonder whether Mick McCarthy's VHS and DVD era, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there.
Yeah, fair enough.
I've got no axe to grind with Mick McCarthy. I don't think the way it ended here was particularly good, but I don't wish him any ill thought. And
no, we've all moved on now.
I think the game is better for people like McCarthy being in it. It's probably a little bit more academic and cerebral these days. So to have someone who says it like it is and
old
plays
school
4-4 F2, it's sometimes it's nice to see the complicated strategies, and maybe he'll do that against David Wagner's Norwich with their, asymmetric 4-3-2-1, and Mick McCarthy just shithouses a 1-0 with a set piece. So good luck to him. But good luck to him.
So yeah, Cameron Brannigan turned down a move to Blackpool in the summer and signed a new, I think it was a 3-year deal at the time at Oxford. He's kind of their main guys, and he captain, scored 6 so far this season, 2 from open play, 2 from set pieces and 2 penalties. He presses from the front. He's got the highest tackles per game for Oxford, 1.7 per game. So he's the main man who'll make them tick. And I guess when you think of Oxford, he's probably the star man, the player who most people will associate with that club. And he's an all-round decent player. I thought he was very quiet at Portman Road. And did he get in a bit of a tussle with somebody in a Luco, kind of barged into him, if I remember right, didn't he? And kind of backed his man up. I quite enjoyed that. You don't see enough of that football.
Yeah, he's a focal point, definitely. And yeah, I was impressed when we found that stat on the highest tackles. And there's quite a lot of the forward players and midfielders with high tackles per game and interceptions. So he definitely sets the tone. You're right with that.
Yeah, Carl Joseph has come back to fitness as well. He wasn't involved on Boxing Day. He's on loan from Swansea. He's kind of one that can play in either of the wide forward positions in the 4-3-3. I guess they'd have pinned high hopes on him delivering this season and kind of solving a lot of their goal-scoring issues. But he got quite a bad injury, I think, at the start of November. And he came off the bench last weekend against Fleetwood. That's his first appearance since the injury. So he might potentially be one that comes in for a start. He scored with pretty much his first kick of the game against Fleetwood. It's a lovely goal. He cuts in from the right-hand side, beats the full-back, goes inside sort of Josh Earl and somebody else in the box and just rolls the ball home. So potentially one to look out for. He might well get a start. He scored 6 goals, including the game against Fleetwood. So 5 goals before his injury, and then back up running against Fleetwood last weekend. So potentially one that could come back in as well. And I guess one of those players who they've got high hopes for the second half of the season, solving a lot of their creative and a lot of their goal scoring issues in the front 3. Billy Bowden, a player you mentioned, he came on at half time last week and kind of went to the inside left channel. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists from 22 appearances. Spells at Preston, I think it was, up in the Championship, but kind of come back down again. Josh Murphy is still there, the guy from Norwich who we discussed last time. I think somebody paid 10 million quid for. Once was it Cardiff, I think, paid 10 million pound for. Right. He's another option in the front 3. Lewis Bate is on loan from Leeds, getting rave reviews at the moment. He plays alongside Brannigan with kind of Marcus McGuane as the safety net in the midfield. McGuane will sit, and that will give license to Bate and Brannigan to get forward and look to link and make things happen. And then they've got this strange sort of striking option. So normally Matty Taylor is the central striker we would all kind of associate with games gone past and being a good, solid, pressing League One forward. But they started with Gatlin O'Donker last weekend away to Fleetwood. He's only 18. He's made kind of 2 starts, 4 appearances so far this season. But he was the main focal point last week against Fleetwood. So potentially he could be in that number 9 position again, or it'll go back to Matty Taylor, who hasn't really kind of hit any heights so far this season.
I don't think any of them really have. Brannigan aside, I mean, even 6 for arguably their best player, and 2 of those are penalties as well. So, and you can see,
as Joe Royle said, you can't count penalties.
You can't. Do you
remember that when Pablo scored? Yeah, Pablo. I think it was must have been the second season back down after we lost like May Holland and stuff. The year we bring in Diallo and Santos, I'm sure Pablo had like 12 goals and they were going through a bit of a thing, weren't they, where he wasn't fit and all that kind of stuff. He said he reported back unfit, and I'm sure Joe Royle came out and said, "Oh, you can't really count the penalties because he scored 4 penalties or something." So, yeah.
I mean, given our issues with scoring penalties, I mean, you've got to be giving them. I wouldn't be saying that. It's like saying you don't win friends with salad. It's quite a pithy statement for Joe Royle. God bless him. Yeah, I mean, there is players with pedigree in there. McGuane, ex-Arsenal, Barca B, Nottingham Forest. You mentioned Bale from Leeds. So there is some quality in there, but probably not the kind of quality that's going to create massive chances or convert them as well, which probably tells some of the story there.
I kind of see it. I don't know if you agree. I kind of see it as a solid defence. Elliot Moore, Sam Long, you know, a solid kind of defence, a decent midfield with aspects of quality.
Combative.
And they just struggle in the front three, don't they? That's how I see it. That front three, they can't kind of get anybody consistently to deliver the numbers. The kind of the back third and the middle third of the pitch are fine, or okay at League One standard. But that front three is what's really kind of letting them down. That's how I see it. That might be a simplistic view of seeing it, but that's how I view things.
I think that midfield, as I said, is combative rather than creative. And I definitely recall quite a lot of their goals last season from being from range. So the quality of chances, albeit the XG is quite high, if we dip into the stats in a second, conversion is maybe the issue. And maybe teams have sussed them out from last season, and there's a bit of a re-strategy that they need to figure out there to create those chances or convert those goals. But it does feel like the personnel they've got in the building isn't really doing the job for that. So it'll be interesting to see if they can act before the end of the window. Keeper's only got 3 clean sheets. Eastwood, who missed the game at Portman Road. Ed McGinty, who deputised, has no clean sheets. So I guess it will surprise anyone in his 3 appearances. So Eastwood will play. But they're not keeping clean sheets. In fact, most of those clean sheets are away from home, aren't they? I'm trying to remember. Is it 1 clean sheet or 2 clean sheets from home? I think it's 2, isn't it?
I think it's 2 at home. Yeah, 2 at the Kassam.
Yeah. But as I mentioned then, and this is really strange and weird, they're kind of the inverse of Plymouth. I remember us trying to find the rays of light last week about Plymouth, and it proved to be the case because the goal they scored, the Mumba goal, low XG, massive deflection. And that was, apart from, I guess we forget Hardy's absolute sitter from 8 yards out and for basically an empty net. But the quality of chances there kind of proved what we've been talking about from Plymouth. They're very effective at converting those chances. And that's probably the issue with Oxford. Their XG really high. The home XG is 1.97 per game. So that's the quality of chances they're creating, which is the 4th best in the division. But they're scoring 1.3 goals per game, 16 goals in total at home, which is the 13th highest in the league. So you can see the disparity there. So maybe I've been critical with the midfield or the chance creation. The issue is the conversion of those chances, because otherwise they'd be much higher. A lot of the chances, as you'd expect, or a lot of the goals they're scoring are from open play, but a chunky amount, Seb, from set pieces, dare we say it?
Yeah, 5, as we know from Luca McNally. He's moved on to Burnley, but as we know from McNally last season, they've scored 5 of their 16 home goals have been from set pieces, which is 31%, which is the joint 5th best in the league. So they are a threat. They've got a bit of size about them. Elliot Moore, one of the centre backs, is like 6'4", I think, 6'5" maybe. He's a big old unit. So they've got a bit of physicality in the side that, they will be a threat from offensive set pieces for sure.
And as I mentioned before, the stat that I teased before, they are the highest shot takers at home in the division, 19 shots on average per game. And 6 of those typically are on target, which is the 2nd highest. But I got this stat wrong last week. I forgot to mention shots from outside the area when we were talking about Plymouth. I think I might have come back and clarified it, but let me get this right this time around. So they have the highest number of shots from outside the area in the division by quite a margin, I think. And of their 229 total shots so far this season, 113 are from outside the area, which represents 49% of their shots on goal, Seb, are outside the area. So that perhaps tells you the story with why they're not scoring too many goals, because if they're trying efforts from outside the 18-yard box, but maybe you don't have the quality of a Whittaker or Mumba, then maybe that tells the story. And just for clarity, I think we've got the most shots taken in total in League One, and only 33% of our shots are from outside the area. Maybe we need to take a few more, perhaps. In terms of other stats that are interesting and where they are kind of high performing, pass accuracy is pretty good. Possession at home is the 2nd highest at just under 60%. Away from home, it's only 46.5%. So that really chimes with that home and away situation there. Top for aerial duels, though, conversely, which is interesting. Average 28 home duels won per game, and they'll dribble as well at us, 6 for dribbles per game, about 6 per game. So that's what the stats say. XGA, in terms of their defensive record, they are conceding the number of goals that XG would predict for them, 0.08. Pretty good, 5th best in terms of XGA and 9th best in terms of their goals record. But yeah, XGA is 1.08. Their goals per game conceded at home, 1.08. There you go. XG tells the story, gets it right.
So for the simpletons like me, this basically means they are conceding the number of goals you would expect them to concede, but they are scoring way under the number of goals you would expect them to score.
If you believe that XG is an accurate representation,
if you believe it's XG,
the quality of chances. If you don't, then you can get your Mick McCarthy voice and say, "It's mumbo jumbo, lad." The key stat is the one at the top corner. I'm
delighted we've got an impression back as well.
It's
have to do this now prepare it. We'll have mixed thoughts of the week, and you can do it as a voice every single between now and the end of the season. It'd be great.
He's a bit Bolton-y there, I think. I've got Peter Kay in the brain at the moment, but yeah.
Is he from Barnsley or is it Leeds or something?
He's definitely Yorkshire, so I just need to get the Yorkshire.
Well, you've got a week to perfect it.
I'll keep going, but yeah, you talked about, Seb, set piece goals for. Do you want to scare everyone, given we've got such a good set piece record at the moment with home record set pieces wise?
Yeah, no goals conceded from a set piece. So, like we said, Messinio, who's moved on to Pompey, was looking after the offensive and the defensive set pieces. Very good in both because they've scored 31% of their home goals from set pieces and haven't conceded a single one against. So, whatever he was doing was working well. So, yeah, shame for that for us because we are obviously, a massive threat. I'm not sure if we're still the top scorers in the league with our set pieces, but yeah, they are very tight at the back, which again comes into the fact they've got a few big old units at the back there. So yeah, maybe we'll come on to discuss what we're going to do, but maybe a bit of physicality up front might be needed. Yeah,
tell us about the stat for shots conceded. Doesn't make good reading, does it?
At home, no, 8.5 shots conceded per game, which is the second best in the league. So they are miserly with the shots and the chances they will give away, which I guess kind of all this kind of stats explain why the games between us since our time down in League One have been so close. And I know Boxing Day was a bit of an outlier, but the rest of them are all kind of 0-0, 0-1, 0-0, 0-0. 1-1. It's not a game that normally is high scoring, which explains, why they give relatively little away at the back is quite a fair way to describe it.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll be back after this.
Innovation Labs is business hub and co-working space with strategic locations across Suffolk. Our aim is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, business growth, and the development of an AI centre of excellence in Suffolk. Monthly hot desks are available from just £79. For more info, head to innovationlabsgroup.com or contact info@innovationlabsgroup.com. Innovation Labs, providing support for businesses across Suffolk. Locations in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, Woodbridge, with more to follow.
So to summarise our thoughts on Oxford then, Seb, I think you started doing it there. Definitely a different proposition at home compared to what we saw at Portman Road.
Yeah.
Very miserly, I think was your word, defensively, and will try and shoot from range, but will probably be frustrated maybe by the lack of goals they score. Set pieces is a problem, and we shouldn't expect them to be welcoming when it comes to conceding set pieces
so it's going to be 4-3 to Ipswich with goals galore from set pieces now, isn't it? Now we've just said
we're doing our best to jinx it, aren't we? That's maybe our job here, isn't it? Let's talk about, as you mentioned that you were at the Plymouth game last week. Are there anything that you would immediately change with? There's hints that Broadhead, if he trains on Friday, obviously recording this Thursday, then he might feature. But I guess the obvious shout is Ladapo or Hurst, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's hinted in the pre-match pressers, and he kind of said we'll see plenty of minutes. He wasn't injured at Blackburn. He's trained well. He had a couple of behind closed doors during the World Cup break. So I think Hurst will start this one. I think he'll come in for Ladapo up front. I thought Ladapo did okay against Plymouth. He did fine, missed a couple of chances, potentially should have squared for that one for Burns. But I think Hurst has been brought here to play. He's kind of one of the bits of the jigsaw we went after all last summer. So I expect him to play. Broadhead, I don't think will start. I guess if someone's only, if it's dependent on a good training session on the day before the game, he's probably going to be a bench option at best. So I think Hurst will come in. And other than that, I expect it to be the Burns, Chaplin, Harness kind of three behind him. Okay. What do you think we'll do? Do you agree with that? Do you think Ladapo will get another go? Or it's Ladapo's shirt to lose, isn't it? But do you think he did enough against Plymouth to keep that. And now again, if George Hurst has got another few minutes under his belt and is kind of, you know, training well and looking good.
I think Hurst is more of a physical presence. He's definitely taller.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Oxford quite dominant centre back. So I wonder whether that might play into McKenna's thinking. The other thing we need to be thinking about as well is who would you rather bring off the bench? Because our bench is almost as important as the team that starts, maybe even more so, depending on how games pan out. And would you rather bring on Ladapo or would you rather bring on Hurst? And I wonder whether Ladapo in certain games is a better option to bring off the bench, perhaps. I don't know.
I think he tends to struggle when he comes off the bench. I think Ladapo's best work has always been when he started. I think him and Harness are ones where they come off the bench, they kind of almost struggle to get in the rhythm of the game. And I guess depending, I was at Sheffield Wednesday when Ladapo came on, and the side dropped so deep, he looked so isolated up front. So, you know, that example wasn't really his fault. But I've just seen across the season, I think both of them are a lot better and sharper when they start games.
Yeah, I remember Derby. I think Ladapo came on, and I was quite critical, probably unnecessarily so. But it didn't really feel like he got up to speed, and his job, I think, was to start the high press, at least to me. And he didn't really do too much of that. But maybe he was supposed to be an outball. But yeah, okay. Well, I do think that perspective as to who you want coming off the bench is as big a consideration maybe as who starts. So, but okay, it feels like it's possibly a Ladapo start and a Hurst coming on 60 perhaps, as we did last week. Who knows? For some reason, I don't know, this is just coming to my head, so I'm going to say it and I'll be proven wrong. I think Harness is going to score. I think Harness is overdue a goal. I don't know why that came into my mind. I was speaking to I was on Gab Sutton's EFL debate last night for League One and speaking to some guys there, including a Burton fan. And I remember the Burton goal that Harness scored. And I got that in my mind again. So there you go. Don't, when the fun stops, stop. Don't put money on that. That's just
he is due one. Has he scored since he came back from injury? I'm not sure he has he? So he's definitely due one. He had that
the bar last week.
The one last week where he had all the time in the world and hit clips the top of the bar. But yeah, he is due one. So yeah, potentially. So do you agree that Broadhead will probably start on the bench then, and Harness starts the game?
I think it's a risk, isn't it, if he hasn't really trained? But I would like to see him come off the bench, definitely, if he's fit enough.
And I think the rest of the side picks itself, doesn't it? Morsey, Evans. Yeah. Why? What would you look to do?
I'm again being super critical, and I think by the way, at least in real time recording, Clark hasn't signed yet for us yet. So but I'd be surprised if he's on the bench at all anyway on Saturday, given the proximity to match day if the deal's done.
We've got two games next week as well. We've got Morecambe and then the FA Cup game.
Yeah, indeed.
So chance to blood him is on the horizon.
If he's fit, I wonder whether Edmondson gets a nod instead of Burgess. And I don't know whether I'm being really critical. I just think in a game like this one, I think it helps having someone like Edmondson who's better on the ball possession-wise. And I do think that Burgess has been unfortunate, but has nevertheless found himself partly contributing, albeit in a very unfortunate manner, to us conceding goals. And I just wonder whether these marginal moments, McKenna just thinks whether Edmondson might be a better bet. I don't know. What do you think?
So when you say, are you saying that Burgess is directly responsible for conceding goals, or just
directly? But he's been.
He's had the two deflections, and he's had the one at Wickham where he committed himself quite early, didn't he?
Exactly right. And the trouble is, and again, I was saying this to Gab, we are on the wrong end of some really marginal moments right now. And the trouble is, I guess, if you're being objective about it, the people who have been involved in those marginal moments tend to be the same people. Yeah. So. Given it's so hard to get in the squad in our starting 11, is there not a need for you to be at the top of your game? And whilst Burgess is definitely improved and is a much better player than the player we signed from Accrington, Fleetwood's in my mind, Plymouth's in my mind, Wickham's in my mind. Does that not unsettle maybe the defence? If you know, I'm not saying he's directly responsible for those goals, but he has a part to play in it nevertheless, even if it's a small part. Am I being overly harsh?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've said on this podcast before, I think George Edmondson is the better player. I think he fits in better to how McKenna wants to play. He's obviously more comfortable bringing the ball out of defence. Like you said, Burgess has improved massively in that area. And I guess, the right foot, left foot balance is a nice kind of, attribute to have. But I think Edmondson is the better player. There just seems to be a bit of, mystery around it's like he's being managed with his illness or injury or whatever's, going on, isn't it? There's definitely something about it. To be not on the bench last week with Keogh there, I don't believe he is the fifth choice centre back. I think whatever either hangover from the injury sustained last February, January time, maybe he's having his game time managed a little bit. But I think he's the better footballer, so I'd have no issues if he were to come in and start the game.
But he's certainly not a left-footed centre-back, is he?
No, that's the issue you've got. Yeah, you will face that kind of, cutting back on the right foot. But equally, you will gain the fact he will, like Wolfenden, pick up the ball and look to move forward into midfield, link up with Evans, link up with Davis. So you lose the left foot balance, but do you gain more by having another natural ball-playing defender at the back? I think you probably do, personally.
And a fit Edmondson, I think, doesn't get as outpaced as easily as Burgess did against Niall Ennis last week as well, which is something in my mind too. So that'll be interesting. Your thoughts on players who didn't make the bench last week? We talked about Edmondson. Luco wasn't on the bench, was he?
Yeah. Which, given how the game played out, when they brought Humphreys on and pushed Morsey into that kind of left-sided number 10 role that Harness was occupying, I couldn't help but think that would be an excellent opportunity for a Luco to come on, go into the number 10, and Chaplin shifts out wide, and then you've got that little bit of experience who can, put his foot on the ball when it's needed, keep the ball, look to quickly move us up the pitch if opportunities arise. For me, I would always have a Luco on the bench, because no matter how the game is going, he would always prove useful. If we're looking to close the game down, then his close control, his awareness, his ball retention skills would be, really, really useful. And equally, if we're chasing a game, then he's capable of those brilliant moments where a simple defense splitting pass can be played. So I'd always have him on the bench personally. I guess you want your bench to be full of game changers. That's the point of the substitutes. Jackson's pace probably makes him an out and out dead cert on the bench, because he's a game changer. So I think you'd have a Luco fighting out with Carl Edwards for the other kind of forward sub option. But I'd have him on the bench personally ahead of Edwards, I think, at the moment.
And no Lee last week. You have KVY on the bench over Lee?
Yeah, I guess it's just the versatility that kind of ticked that off, I assume, because KVY can cover both fullback positions if needed, whereas Lee is really only a left back or maybe an emergency left-sided centre back. If Burns were to go down, it's a lot more of a reshuffle to bring Lee on than it is to bring KVY on, isn't it? That's the only logic I presumed. I thought he might. You do have Jackson there. Yeah, I thought he might not have a centre back on the bench last week. I thought KVY might be the defender, because Donatian could kind of slot inside to one of the centre half roles if need be, and that would free up a space on the bench for another attacking player. But obviously, Kieran was on there. So
fair enough. Well, we'll come back to predictions shortly. In terms of bits and pieces of podcast news or podcast business, we are brought to you in partnership with our friends at the ground. Great atmosphere and buzz before the game, wasn't there last week? So
yeah, really good.
I will be there ahead of the game on Tuesday night, I think, or maybe not actually. But do head down to the Greyhound pre-match or any other time of the week. They've got lovely Christmas, winter menus and all that kind of stuff, lunch deals. So lots of cool stuff happening down the Greyhound. So do get down there and support them. Telegram group, Seb, always fun, isn't it? Matchday chat will be a buzz on Saturday, won't it?
Yeah, we opened it early last week, didn't we? We opened it on was it the Friday? We opened it before for the Plymouth game to get the atmosphere going. So yeah, come and give it a go. 2-week free trial, then it's only a £5. You won't lose anything. The numbers have grown a little bit in the last week or so, haven't they, as well? So more people are joining our community, and yeah, it's great. It's a nice, safe space for well-reasoned football debate without any of the trolls or dickheads. So yeah, come and join us. It's a great place to be.
And lots of other stuff going on there as well. We've got Academy chat and ITFC
actually women chat,
other football,
general Premier League chat. Yeah,
and then lots of people sad about Ken Bruce leaving Radio 2 and what that means for Popmaster. So even that kind of content is welcome on the Blue Monday Telegram group. Merch wise, we did have a promo for free shipping, but that's now expired. But we'll keep you posted if anything else comes in terms of promos. They're quite frequent there, but if you can't wait, if you want to get yourself a chunky Blue Monday hoodie, and there's plenty of choice, head to Blue Monday ITFC.co.uk. The links are there for that, the Telegram group, and all of our podcast and video output, and all the shows and stuff like that. We do an itinerary there as well. Flagship is back Sunday night at 8 p.m. We want you involved in the live debate there with Ben back in the host chair with Craig and Dave, I think it is. Might have got that wrong, but I'll double check that. And as always, if you're traveling down to the game on Saturday and you want to give us a heads up that you're listening or thinking of us or whatever, I don't know if you're thinking of us to people. Probably don't think of us. That's weird, isn't it?
It's a bit weird, especially with you in that jumper.
Oh, me and my milk tray, yeah. Do leave us a tweet or an Instagram or a review and give us a thumbs up on YouTube and all that fun stuff as well. And yeah, I think that's all good. Should we do some predictions very briefly? So before we say goodbye, let's do some predictions. It's been a while since we've done predictions. So
I'll be honest, I thought we dropped it as a feature. I thought that because you'd started to lose a couple of weeks on the bounce, it had just vanished from the itinerary. So yeah, I kind of figured we wouldn't be revisiting this one. Because I'm sure I won the last. Didn't I win the last two?
No, definitely not.
I think I did. I'm sure I did.
I'm pretty certain you only won one of them. I think one of them was
Did Joe win?
Joe won, yeah. So Joe did
so the contributor has clawed back 2 weeks worth. Yeah, so
yeah, there you go.
That's why I thought you got nervous and binned it off.
So you're 4 rounds behind and 26 points behind. But yeah, if you want to feel good about yourself, then feel free, mate. I kind of feel like I'm like an analogy for Ipswich. Started off really well and then started to be clawed back and maybe being overtaken if I'm not too
Let's see how you like being hunted.
But yeah, I was in 3rd place because FPL Tractor got more points than me as well. So I had a proper hiding match day 22, which was the Wickham round. So not a huge amount of excitement, a lot of postponements in that, which probably may have sorted me right. No, I'm clutching at straws. Let's focus on this week because we have talked about binary scorelines, haven't we? 0-0 is 1-1-1, 0-0-0, 1-1-1 for us. Before we deal with our game, we'll put it up on the screen there for those watching on YouTube. But there's quite a few interesting ties involving top 6 teams. Derby Bolton. Seb, any comments on that one?
I've gone for a narrow Derby win. They've hit a real run of form, haven't they? So I think the Pride Park advantage will be crucial there. And yeah, you've gone for a 1-0. I've gone for a 2-1. And FPL Tractor's gone for a 1-0. So we're all predicting a 1-goal margin to the home side, aren't we?
And Elkan Baggett turning up at Plymouth. Do you think he's going to do us a favour? You've got him scoring a goal, have you?
I've got 3-1. Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, imagine if he can perform a defensive masterclass and keep them out and get a point or even better at Home Park. That would be absolutely ideal, wouldn't it? But I can't see them dropping points at Home Park against Cheltenham. Can you? No, you've gone, again, we've gone for the same thing, a 2-goal winning margin, and FPL's gone for a 3-0. So we'd love to all be proved wrong on that one, but I think we know what's going to happen.
But then Cheltenham got a point at Portman Road, didn't they? We know they can do it. So
yeah, but they'll just, if it's 0-0 in the 90th minute, Ballymumble will just score, deflect from 30 yards out. It's what they do in it. So
shit house a goal. Yeah, that's the word of the day today, isn't it? And then Sheffield Wednesday, Fleetwood. We're not holding out much hope for Fleetwood, are we?
No, I mean Wednesday are on a hell of a run of form, aren't they? And Fleetwood are a tough side. If it was at Fleetwood, I'd be a bit more optimistic. But again, you and me have gone for the 2-1 score, and FPL's gone for a 3-0 to Wednesday. So yeah, again, this is a big game for us, isn't it? I mean, I can think of places I'd rather go for a bit of pressure building a little bit. I don't think, well, we'll discuss our result in a minute. I don't think it's going to be the easiest game in the world. And I think, unfortunately, the way the fixture list has dealt both of our direct rivals are pretty much a free hit week. We're going to have to go and get something at Oxford, aren't we?
Not that this can happen, but if I'd offered you Morecambe on Saturday and Oxford on Tuesday, would you have taken it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would I. I don't know why it is. Yeah,
just bounce back. Portman Road again, you'd have like 27,000 there. Bounce back with a bit of confidence going into the Oxford game, because I don't know. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of stuff going around after the Plymouth game, and the season certainly isn't over, despite what some people are saying. But I think we all left very deflated, didn't we? Deflation, I think, is the word to use. I'm sure you guys used it on the Flagship on Sunday, didn't you? Deflation is the word to use after that result. So, if we'd have beaten them, huddled for the win, go into this game full of confidence, full of beans, I'd be a lot more optimistic about tomorrow. About
full
Saturday.
Full
of beans. Sorry, my phone's going crazy, but no, it's not. No, still not confirmed yet.
In real time, we're still not getting news or transfer business. So yeah, I've gone for a draw. I've gone for a score draw because I don't believe Oxford are good at keeping clean sheets, but I was pretty confident before I read the script and then added my bits and pieces of stats in there. And now I'm not so sure. But on paper, Seb, the home record at Oxford isn't particularly great, is it?
Yep. And they will let us,
It depends on whether we turn up and try to impose ourselves, and whether people can make contributions and convert the chances that we will undoubtedly create. I know that we said that Oxford aren't particularly friendly at conceding chances, but the way we play will invite it, won't it? So we've got, yeah, you've gone for, talk us through your prediction rather than me just stumble around.
I was really torn between heart versus head on this one. I think, having done the research, like you say, their home form isn't amazing, but given how miserly they are in defence, I also thought it would be a draw. But then at the last minute, I changed my mind and went for the Ipswich win, because I think we have to win. I think we're going to need, 9 points from this Morecambe and Cambridge, don't you, to keep pace with, going into that Sheffield Wednesday game. I mean, if we were to draw against Oxford and those guys both win their respective home games, and the gap gets a little bit wider, and all of a sudden the pressure ramps up again, doesn't it? So yeah, I think we need to go there, put on a confident performance and win. So I've gone for a narrow, squeaky bum, low scoring kind of victory. That's what I think.
It's going to be nice to be on the right end of a last minute winner. That'd be good. Marcus Harness, 89th minute. That would be good, wouldn't it? And FPL Tractor's gone for the. He's more confident. We need to get on whatever FPL Tractor's on. 2-0 prediction for him. But yeah, worth noting. And I quite like to do this comparison. I did it when we drew with Lincoln, where Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth both drew 1-1. Oxford are yet to host Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth, so we've got no comparison there. But yeah, we do know that Oxford got a point away at Sheffield Wednesday. But as we said, different home and away team, aren't we? We'll be back next week to see what's what with that, and hope that I'm wrong, hoping that Seb and FPL Tractor correct, and fingers crossed that other events conspire which annoy and screw over Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday, because it's a long old season, guys, isn't it? It's a life is a roller coaster. Football's a roller coaster. Just got to ride it up and downs. Lots of cliches and bollocks like that. Let's move it on before I say something stupid. Let's keep going. That's your lot. Thank you to the Greyhound. Thank you to our partners at Innovation Labs as well. Do join us on Telegram. Do join us for the Flagship show Sunday night, 8 p.m. Live chat, live discussion, all the reaction from Oxford, hopefully with positive stuff to talk about. I'm refreshing Twitter, Seb. Nothing going on there.
Nothing. No, nothing.
Signing to talk about in definitive terms, unlike us tiptoeing around it. Thank you, Seb, for all of your hard work. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for contributing in the chat. We've had some really good numbers and good interaction in recent weeks. So thank you, everyone who's got involved in that, and keep it coming. And Seb, as always, I'll hand over to you for the final word.
Big 2 games coming up in the space of 4 days or whatever it is. Have a great time, everybody going. Just win, please, Ipswich. Come on, you Blues.